in the heart of a struggling neighborhood. A blind man named Elijah Eli Carter stood on his porch, a figure of quiet strength amidst the chaos that surrounded him. To the untrained eye, he was a symbol of vulnerability, a target for those who thrived on intimidation. But beneath the surface lay a man forged by the fires of conflict, a former Navy SEAL whose instincts and skills had saved lives. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement, Eli made his way home, tapping his cane lightly against the ground. The neighborhood buzzed with life. The distant sound of radio, the cries of children, and the occasional bark of a dog. It was a place where resilience thrived, where neighbors exchanged nods and guarded smiles. But beneath that facade, tension simmered. Eli passed by the Thompson residence, where Mrs. Thompson sat on her porch, her voice warm yet weary. "Good evening, Mr. Carter," she called out, rocking gently in her chair. "Evening, ma'am," Eli replied, tipping his head in her direction. As he approached his own home, he sensed a shift in the air, a quiet that hinted at trouble. Low, mocking voices drifted toward him from across the street. "Hey, look at this guy," one of them sneered, laughter following like a dark cloud. Eli slowed his pace, gripping his cane tightly. A group of 5 men emerged from the shadows, their tattooed arms glistening under the streetlights, exuding an air of confidence born from years of unchecked cruelty. "Hey, blind boy," the leader called out, a stocky man with a serpent tattoo coiling around his neck. "Lost or something? This ain't your neighborhood." Eli stopped, tilting his head slightly as if listening to something they couldn't hear. "I know exactly where I am," he replied quietly. The man's smirk faltered for a moment before he recovered. "What? You think you're special or something? Walking around like you own the place? Ain't nobody gonna save you, ghost eyes." Eli remained calm, his voice steady. "I'm not looking for trouble, but if you bring it to me, you won't like what you find." The leader laughed, motioning for his friends to surround Eli. "Oh, we're gonna like it just fine." The tension thickened as they closed in, their shadows swallowing the faint light from inside Eli's house. The old clock chimed once, its sound sharp and clear. Eli exhaled slowly, readying himself. "Leave now or you'll regret it." The gang exchanged glances, momentarily thrown by Eli's unwavering confidence. But the leader quickly recovered, puffing out his chest. "Regret it? What are you going to do? You can't even see us coming." Eli's grip tightened on his cane, his expression unreadable. "You're on my property. Leave." The gang chuckled, their laughter echoing off the quiet street. "Blind boy thinks he can tell us what to do," one of them jeered, "like he owns the whole block." "I didn't say that," Eli replied, his voice firm. "I just said you need to leave." The leader stepped closer, invading Eli's space. "You don't tell us what to do. This ain't your block anymore, it's Marcus's." Eli's brow furrowed. "Who's Marcus?" The leader scoffed, shaking his head. "Figures. Marcus runs things around here now, and he don't want people like you hanging around." "My kind?" Eli's jaw tightened. "Yeah, your kind," the leader sneered, leaning in. "Always thinking you're better than the rest of us. But guess what? You're just another nobody who's going to learn his place." Eli's stance shifted slightly, but his voice remained steady. "I've lived here for years. This is my home, and I'm not going anywhere." The leader's face darkened, his grin replaced by a sneer. "You think Marcus is the kind of man you can just ignore? He's the reason we're here. Blind boy. Sent us to make sure you got the message loud and clear." Eli's tone dropped, firm and resolute. "You're done. Leave now or you'll regret it." The gang hesitated, thrown off by Eli's confidence, but the leader quickly rallied them. "You really think you're in charge, huh? Let's see you back it up." One of the men lunged first, a fist swinging toward Eli. With a sudden fluid motion, Eli sidestepped, his cane snapping up to deflect the blow. The sharp crack echoed in the night, and the man stumbled back, clutching his arm. The others hesitated, surprised by Eli's speed. "What the hell are you waiting for?" "Take him down," the leader snarled. The fight erupted into chaos. Eli moved fluidly, instinct taking over. He pivoted on his heel, letting the first man's momentum carry him past. Eli's cane struck low, hooking behind the man's ankle and sending him sprawling to the ground. "Get him!" the wiry man barked, disbelief in his voice. Eli's breathing was steady, his mind laser-focused. Years of training had honed him into a weapon, a man who could fight even in the dark. The gang hesitated for only a moment before rushing him as a group, their jeers turning into frustrated growls. Eli ducked low, letting their momentum carry them past him. He struck the first man in the stomach, doubling him over, then turned and drove an elbow into the second man's jaw, sending him staggering back. The leader snarled from behind the group. "Stop messing around. Put him down already." Eli's senses narrowed to sound and motion. The scrape of boots on gravel, the rush of air as fists swung toward him. Two attackers came at him from opposite sides. Eli ducked low, letting their wild swings miss. He countered with calculated precision, his elbow connecting with one man's nose, a sickening crack accompanying his fall. The other caught a sharp jab to the ribs, doubling over just as Eli swept his cane across his back, dropping him beside his friend. The fight was chaos, but Eli's movements were deliberate, each strike calculated to disable and disarm. The leader cursed loudly, backing away as Eli turned toward him. "You think you've won?" he shouted, his voice faltering. "Marcus is going to hear about this, and when he does, you're done." Eli stood still, his stance steady, his grip firm on the cane. "I'll be waiting." The leader spat on the ground, then turned and disappeared into the night, leaving his injured men behind. Eli took a deep breath, his senses still sharp, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the faint rustle of curtains as neighbors peeked out, the quiet tension hanging heavy in the air. The fight was over for now. Eli stood still for a moment, assessing his surroundings. He walked over to the first injured man, who tried to scramble backward but failed. "Stay back," the man croaked, his voice trembling. Eli crouched down, his voice low and commanding. "Who is Marcus?" "I don't know much, man. He's just the boss. He tells us what to do," the man stammered. Eli leaned in closer, his voice dropping, ice-lacing his words. "That's not good enough. What does he want with this neighborhood? Why'd he send you here?" The man swallowed hard, his eyes darting around. "He wants control. He wants to own the whole block, businesses, houses, everything. People like you? You're in the way." Eli's jaw tightened. "My kind? Blind and black? Is that it?" The man flinched, his lips trembling. "I mean—" Eli cut him off sharply. "You came in my home. You brought this fight. You don't get to hide behind excuses now. Tell me where to find Marcus." The second man groaned from a few feet away. Trying to push himself up, Eli turned his attention toward him. Where does Marcus operate? Speak." The second man coughed, spitting blood onto the pavement. "Warehouse near the docks. He runs things from there, but you're crazy if you think you can take him on. He'll kill you." Eli crouched again, his expression unreadable. "He sent you here thinking I was weak. I think he's the one who underestimated me." The first man whimpered, fear palpable. "Look, man, just let us go. We're done, okay? We won't come back." Eli's voice hardened. "You'll go when I decide you're done." He stood and turned toward his house, leaving the men tied up and vulnerable. Inside, he retrieved a coil of rope, slinging it over one shoulder. The first man's eyes widened in terror. "What are you going to do with that?" Eli didn't respond immediately. His steps measured as he approached. "You came here to send a message. Now you're going to help me send one back." The men squirmed, their protests weak and uncoordinated as Eli knelt to tie their hands behind their backs. Once they were restrained, Eli stood over them, his figure silhouetted by the faint street lights. "You're going to tell me everything I need to know about Marcus." Eli tightened the last knot on the ropes binding the two men, before grabbing the loose ends and pulling them to their feet. They stumbled, groaning from their injuries, as he guided them toward his house. "Wait! What are you doing?" the wiry man asked, his voice shaking. Eli didn't answer, his steps firm and unyielding. Once inside, he maneuvered the men to a wooden chair and forced them to sit down, tying them securely to it. The silence of the house was oppressive, broken only by their labored breathing. "Look," the first man said, struggling against the ropes. Just call the cops, man. We'll tell them everything. Okay? Just let them handle it. Eli paused, standing over them. Call the cops? He repeated, his tone almost mocking. That's convenient coming from you. Yeah, man, the wiry one blurted out, his voice cracking. They'll handle this. You don't got to do anything else. We'll tell them about Marcus. Just let us go, all right? Eli tilted his head slightly, his expression calm, but cold. If you're scared of the police, you shouldn't have come here in the first place. But something tells me you're not scared of the cops. You're scared of me. The first man swallowed hard, his atoms apple-bobbing visibly. We'll talk, okay? Just don't hurt us. Eli's voice remained steady, unshaken. You'll talk, but not to the police. Not yet. First, you're going to tell me everything I need to know about Marcus, his operations, his plans, everything. The wiry man squirmed, his eyes darting around the room. What do you even want with Marcus? You don't know who you're messing with. Man, he runs everything. The warehouses, the streets. He's got guys everywhere. Eli crossed his arms, standing tall over them. Good. Then start with the warehouses. How many? Where are they? What's inside them? The first man's resolve broke, his voice spilling out in a rush. There's a main one by the docks. That's where Marcus stays most of the time. It's got everything: money, drugs, weapons. He uses it to control the whole block. If you're in his way, he sends guys like us to deal with you. Eli nodded slowly, his expression giving nothing away. And who else works for him? How many men does he have? The wiry man shook his head frantically. A lot. Too many for you to handle alone. If you go after him, you're a dead man. Eli leaned in closer, his face inches from the man's. That's not your concern. What else? The first man hesitated, his lips trembling. Look, man, we don't know everything, okay? We're just small time. Marcus tells us what to do, and we do it. That's it. We don't get involved in the bigger stuff. Eli studied them for a long moment, his silence heavy. Then he straightened, his voice firm. You've given me enough for now, but don't think you're off the hook. What are you going to do with us? The wiry man asked, his voice cracking with fear. Eli's face was unreadable as he turned away, heading toward a nearby table. That depends. If I think you're lying, you'll wish the police were your problem. The two men exchanged panicked glances, their breathing ragged. The atmosphere in the room was suffocating, the weight of Eli's presence pressing down on them. You're insane, the first man whispered, his voice barely audible. Eli turned back to face them, his stance calm, his voice resolute. No, I'm a man protecting his home. Marcus made a mistake coming after me, and so did you. Eli stood silently for a moment, the room heavy with the sound of the two men's labored breathing. Their eyes darted nervously, tracking his every movement as he pulled open a nearby drawer. What are you doing now? The wiry man stammered, straining against his bonds. Eli didn't answer immediately. From the drawer, he retrieved two large plain canvas bags. He held one up briefly before speaking, his voice calm and deliberate. You wanted to send a message. Now you're going to help me send one back. No, man. Come on, the wiry man yelped, wriggling harder in his chair. You don't have to do this. We told you what you wanted. Eli's expression was unreadable as he approached. And now I'm making sure Marcus knows the consequences of coming after me. The other man froze, wide-eyed. Please, man, just call the cops. We'll talk to them. Eli cut him off, his tone sharp. The cops don't scare Marcus, but this will. Without another word, he pulled the first bag over the wiry man's head. The man's muffled protest filled the room, frantic and desperate. Eli moved to the other man and did the same, ignoring their writhing. Once their head recovered, Eli untied the ropes binding them to chairs, keeping their hands securely tied behind their backs. He pulled them to their feet, his movements firm and controlled. Move, he ordered, his voice cold and commanding. The men stumbled, blind and disoriented, as Eli guided them toward the door. Outside, the air was cool, the quiet street illuminated by the pale glow of a flickering lamppost. Eli forced him to sit at the base of the lamppost, tying their ankles together and securing them tightly to the metal pole. "Please," one of them whimpered from beneath the bag. "We're done, okay? We won't come back." Eli stood over them, his voice steady and unyielding. "Good, because if I see you on this street again, this will seem like mercy." The men fell silent, their breaths ragged and shallow. Eli turned and walked back toward his house, the neighborhood still watching from behind their curtains. He locked the door and paused, taking a deep breath. Inside, Eli spread out a large sheet of paper, sketching a rough map of the docks from memory. Every movement was calculated, every line deliberate. Years of training had taught him the value of preparation. If Marcus was expecting fear, he would find the opposite. The next evening, Eli made his way to Maya's diner. The streets were quiet, the faint hum of distant cars the only sound. He relied on his cane to navigate the cracks and uneven pavement, but his ears kept him aware of his surroundings. The bell above the diner door jingled softly as he entered, the smell of coffee and frying bacon wafting through the air. Maya looked up from behind the counter, her brows furrowing in concern. "Eli," she said, walking over to meet him. "What are you doing out so late?" "I need your help," Eli said, his tone quiet but firm. Maya led him to a booth, glancing over her shoulder to make sure no one was eavesdropping. Once seated, she leaned forward. "What's going on?" Eli rested his hands on the table. "There's a man named Marcus trying to take over this neighborhood. He's running more than just a street gang. He's targeting homes, businesses, everything, and he's operating out of a warehouse by the docks." Maya blinked in surprise. "Marcus? I've never heard that name before. How do you know all this?" Eli's face was calm, his voice steady. "The men who came after me told me they were working for him." Maya's eyes widened. "Eli, you should have told someone. You can't handle this on your own." "I know," Eli interrupted. "That's why I'm here. I need help, Maya. This isn't just about me. If Marcus isn't stopped, he'll take over everything we've worked to build here." Maya nodded slowly, though her worry didn't fade. "Okay, what do you need?" "People I can trust," Eli said. "People who care about this neighborhood as much as I do. They don't need to fight. They just need to help me gather information." Maya tapped her fingers against the table, thinking. "All right, I know some folks who might step up. Jenkins from the hardware store. He's always hated the gang harassing his customers. Angie at the laundromat, too. She keeps her ear to the ground, hears everything that happens around here." "That's a good start," Eli said. "We need to find out everything we can about Marcus, how many men he has, what they're guarding, their routines. The more we know, the better we can prepare." By the next evening, Eli's living room was filled with a small group of neighbors. Maya had brought Jenkins, a wiry older man with a weathered face, and Angie, a sharp-eyed woman who exuded quiet confidence. "So what's this about?" Jenkins asked, leaning against the wall. Eli nodded. "There's a man named Marcus. He's running an operation out of a warehouse by the docks. Drugs, weapons, money. He's trying to take over this neighborhood, and we're in his way." Angie crossed her arms. "Never heard of this Marcus before. You sure about this?" "I'm sure," Eli replied firmly. "The men who attacked me work for him. They said Marcus is trying to control everything. Our homes, our businesses, all of it. If we wait, he'll tighten his grip until it's too late to stop him." Jenkins frowned. "And what do you expect us to do? We're not fighters." "You don't have to fight," Eli replied. "But I need eyes and ears. We need to gather information. How many men Marcus has, what their routines are, where the weak points in his operation might be." Maya nodded. "If we can figure that out, we can hit him where it hurts without putting everyone at risk." Jenkins sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I've got some old equipment I can rig up, something to cause a ruckus if we need to distract them. And I can spread the word quietly," Angie added. "People talk when they think no one's listening." Eli leaned forward, his voice calm but resolute. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. Marcus thinks he can take what he wants. We need to show him he's wrong." The group exchanged glances, the weight of the fight ahead settling over them. Slowly, they nodded, their resolve building. Eli stood in his living room. the faint outlines of the gathered neighbors just visible in the dim light. The map of the docks lay on the coffee table, surrounded by scraps of paper and small tools Jenkins had brought from his hardware store. "All right," Eli said, his tone calm but firm. "First step is gathering information. We need eyes on that warehouse, shift changes, deliveries, any patterns we can exploit." Angie leaned over the map, squinting at the rough lines. "There's a back alley here," she said, pointing to a section near the warehouse. "I've seen some of their trucks going in and out. I can stake it out, see what I can learn." "Good," Eli said, nodding. "Jenkins, you can rig some of these," he said, holding up a bundle of old car alarms. "Set them off when we need to pull their attention away." "That's good," Eli said, nodding. "We also need to make sure no one in the neighborhood tips them off. Marcus's men don't trust easily, but someone desperate enough might sell us out." Maya crossed her arms. "I'll handle that. People talk to me at the diner. I can make sure the wrong ears don't hear anything." The room was quiet for a moment, the gravity of their mission sinking in. Then Angie broke the silence. "Look, I get that we're doing this, but shouldn't we get the police involved? If Marcus is running drugs and weapons, they're the ones who should be taking him down, not us." Eli turned his head slightly toward her, his white eyes catching the faint light. "The police?" His voice was calm, but the edge in his tone was unmistakable. "Yes." Angie pressed. "This is their job, isn't it? Why risk ourselves when we could just tip them off?" Eli exhaled slowly, his expression hardening. "You think they don't know?" Angie frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "They know exactly what's happening," Eli said, his voice steady but firm. "But they won't do anything about it either. They're on Marcus's payroll, or they're too scared to get involved. Either way, the police are useless to us." Jenkins leaned back against the wall, nodding grimly. "He's not wrong. I've seen Marcus's guys hanging around the precinct. They're bold because they know no one's coming for them." Angie hesitated, glancing at Maya. "So it's really just us?" "It's always been just us," Maya said quietly. "But that's why we're doing this. If we don't fight back, no one will." Eli leaned forward, his hands resting on the table. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone in this neighborhood who's too scared to stand up. If Marcus wins, he won't stop until he's taken everything. We can't let that happen." The room fell silent again, but this time it was filled with a quiet resolve. Angie nodded slowly, her expression firm. "All right, what's the next step?" Eli tapped the map. "We work in shifts. Jenkins, rig the distractions near the alley. Angie, watch the warehouse and track their movements. Maya, keep the neighborhood calm and make sure no one gets suspicious. I'll coordinate everything and step in when it's time to act." "Got it," Jenkins said, already sorting through his tools. "Let's get to work," Maya added, standing with purpose. The group dispersed, their quiet determination filling the room as they began their preparations. Eli stood still for a moment, listening to the faint sounds of movement and conversation. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, they had a plan. The following days were a blur of quiet activity. Eli remained at the center of it all, coordinating their efforts while the team worked tirelessly. Jenkins had set up his distractions, an assortment of old car alarms rigged to trip at the press of a remote. "They're crude," Jenkins admitted as he showed Eli how to trigger them, "but they'll make enough noise to draw attention." "They don't have to be perfect," Eli replied. "They just need to create confusion." At the same time, Angie began her surveillance from the safety of a boarded-up building near the docks. She tracked the movements around Marcus's warehouse, keeping meticulous notes on shift changes, delivery times, and the size of Marcus's crew. One evening, she sat in the diner with Maya and Eli, sharing what she'd learned. "They're well organized," Angie said, tapping her notebook. "About 12 to 15 men rotate through the warehouse, 2 shifts every 12 hours. The most activity happens around 10 p.m. That's when the trucks come in." "Trucks?" Eli asked, leaning forward.